So, today we are going to be looking through this little gem I found called Darker Dungeons by Griffyglyphs. And it brings a more gritty, as it says, dangerous tone to your campaigns. I'm not sure. Dangerous, yeah, a bit. Gritty, I think, is a better descriptor. Most of the tends to be the campaigns I like to play, like to run. So we are going to scour this book and pull out of it the sections we are going to use. Somebody messaged me, so it's probably something's probably wrong with my stream. Anyway, okay. So, rules. Guys, can we have multiple pages in the same? Oh, I guess we can. I guess that's good. Okay. So, a lot of this stuff, when I was first reading it, I thought it was a lot of original work. Until I hit the journey section, which I had recognized immediately. Recognized immediately that it was taken pretty much verbatim right from Adventures in Middle-earth. Not a problem. Although I do want to research the Angry GM because he gives credit to the Angry GM as well. So I wonder which came first, the Angry GM or Adventures in Middle-earth with the journey system. Now he also has skill challenges in here, and he hasn't updated his he hasn't updated the document yet, but he calls them, I like the word he has for it now, he calls them trials. And yeah, trials, which I'm a huge, skill challenges were always going to be in the system, that any system I run from now on. However, he does a much better job than 4E ever did explaining them, and offers a lot more different templates in a much cleaner method. But we'll get to all that because we're going to scour all this today. I read it all yesterday, and there's some really cool stuff in here. Some stuff that I thought I was done with that I never worry about and go back to. And he even has samples of which basically all these pieces are modular. You can plug and play all of these into the system. And then he has examples for Radiant Campaign, which is just small tweaks with the focus on immersion and non-combat stuff. And it lists all the pieces he suggests. He's got one for Dark, which is more little bit more micromanaging in some aspects, but not to the point where it's heavy. Not to the point where it's too obtrusive into your game. Your mileage may vary. For instance, there's an inventory system, which is it's very simplified, and I typically wouldn't even consider doing an inventory system. However, the inventory system that is presented in here is very simple and worth considering, and I think I like the flavor of it, especially in a campaign like this, where you are exploring a lot of the world. A lot of your adventurers will be exploring new territory, and it's about exploring and expanding and potentially creating your own, claiming your own land and such, and building upon it. So things like inventory and moving items around, moving bulk items around, becomes a component of something in the game that has to be monitored and addressed. Another system that's in here is weapon or equipment durability, and normally I wouldn't consider something like this. However, again, there's a pretty simple, straightforward method into how they're doing it, and it makes a lot of sense, and it's very clever, and it's really not that obtrusive. And same goes ammunition. They have what they call ammunition dice. Instead of sitting there tracking your ammo, arrow per arrow, or sling bullet per sling bullet, or whatever, they have a very clever system where you roll dice based on the ammo size. So if you have a full quiver of arrows, let's say, and you roll a d20 every time you fire an arrow. And if you roll a 1 or a 2, you drop the dice down. So a d20 becomes a d12. A d12, if you roll a 1 or 2 on it, it becomes a d10. So it's a consistent, if you don't roll, then you keep rolling that dice, and eventually you get to a d4, and if you roll a 1 or 2 and a d4, you run out of arrows. So eventually, you have a 1 in 10 chance for a d20, 1 in 6 chance on a d12, and these things, over time, you run out of arrows, and you got to go and you got to buy a d20's worth of arrows to fill back up your quiver. Or you might find a quiver of arrows that just has a half, it's got a d12's worth in it. It's just very, very clever, very simple system, but we'll get to all that. We're going to start right from the beginning. We're going to kind of scroll through this and see what items we're going to, it says here, experiment and adapt. And what's cool about a lot of these systems, with the kind of campaign I'm going to run, they don't need to be introduced until later into the game. For instance, there's crafting, jewels, different degrees of success, flasks, gemstones. There's a lot of different oils, potions. There's a lot of different things in here that don't really need to be presented right away until the players experience it. Need to experience it. Diseases. But well, let's just kind of. They have their own adventure cycle, which is if you look at, they have a couple different elements that we borrowed from other sources, from Tome Adventure Design and creating epic campaigns. They do a pretty kind of a snapshot about creating adventures, which covers the adventure cycle. Which you have the hook, the prepare, which is the preparation. The characters are deciding where they're going to go and how to get there. Depart, which is the journey to the destination, the exploring of the destination, and returning once they achieve their goal or run out of, or fail their goal. And then recover, which is the long rest, which is a different item in here as well. The long rest has been altered in these optional rules, and again, we'll see if this is something that we incorporate. But again, there's the adventure cycle has a nice clean layout that he presents, which can be snapshotted and incorporated as a template to really streamline the process. I kind of like this clean look, because you can offer this before every adventure, and just to offer that little insight into what this particular adventure is about. We're not going to get into everything on this side of things right now, on the adventure cycle and creating adventures, because it's a little bit broader scope about what we're doing today. But you can see he even offers some different hooks, different motivations, deadline types, rewards. So these things can be randomized or done on the fly. Or you can pick and choose which one, or come up with something yourself. You're not restricted to everything that's in here, obviously. However, then he covers all the different stages and breaks them down, because like for a hook you have a goal, motivation, deadline, and reward. So you have subtypes in these areas as well, where it's broken down. And then they've got something, I didn't quite follow Flashpoints. I was checking out Flashpoints yesterday as well. Like I said, I read the entire book. This introduces something called Adventure Points. And basically what this is kind of giving you an idea of is how many adventures should you present to your players before they go to the next level. So if you have a party of third level adventurers, and you can if you want to run a short adventure, you're going to only want 2 little flashpoints, whereas a medium or long will want 4 and 6 respectively. And flashpoints they're basically used to generate the types of encounters you're going to run into, and an easy encounter would cost 0.5 adventure points, medium 1, hard 2, extreme 4. And this kind of gives you an algorithm or a formula to build your campaigns around. So for instance, you might, if let's say you wanted to do that medium for third level, you got 4 adventure points. You might choose 2 easy, 1 medium, and 1 hard flashpoint. Scenes, flashpoints. I guess scenes would be another word for it. That they would encounter, and they could be between. You have combat, puzzle, and skill. Adventure paths. This is kind of about breaking up the story, breaking up your overlying arc, like you have this grand story of your adventure, and you want to break that up into not only just little bite-sized pieces, but you want to stray away from that story every now and then so it doesn't become too monotonous. But also, I think it adds a little more believability. I don't know, is the word verisimilitude. Your characters aren't always going to be hard pressed to be doing everything they might not even know about some of the stuff. So there's going to need to be side quests, but there's also ways to link in different adventures. You're going to want to incorporate your characters' backstories. So it's kind of about breaking things into bite-sized chunks, letting things go off the path, and then kind of and along the way you're dropping breadcrumbs and different clues that kind of link certain adventure paths together. I give an example of one. This is just one adventure, and it kind of has all these different encounters along the way. It's more of a flow chart. It says I'm not sure I'm sold on this, how this is presented, but I get where he's going. For instance, the first adventure is Burning Brackenwood, defend the village of Brackenwood from the fiendish cult of the blood. So you have this short third level adventure, and then you move on to a fiendish offering, which requires completing the Burning Brackenwood, and then you start branching off. All these require a fiendish offering, but like for instance, if they do we must rebuild, you can't do we must relocate, and vice versa. So it has those blocks there. And then down to the next section, the Golden Temple. The only way you can do the Golden Temple is if you run the morning rites, but so you might just go, for instance, this might be a side quest, or morning rites, and if you don't do this one, the Golden Temple doesn't open itself up to you. So that's kind of how a lot of this kind of logic you see in, if you've ever designed computer quests, or quests in CRPGs. For instance, Neverwinter Nights, you could set up quest chains like this in a very similar manner. So it's kind of a flow chart, kind of lets you go off the beaten path, like for instance with the morning rites. And if you don't do the morning rites, you're never going to be able to do the Golden Temple. So you could do a for that matter, you would never be able to do the Beating Heart too, because the Beating Heart requires Arcane Sanctuary to be completed and the Golden Temple to be completed. Whereas Bloodthirster, this adventure, can only be done if you've done Arcane Sanctuary and Tools of the Trade. And then the Cult of Blood can only be done if you do Beating Heart. So again, this is another optional side quest that's not required to complete this. Enough. That's kind of some, I guess, adventure creation theory or campaign creation theory, which for the most part, I mean, I subscribe to. It's the 3 books now that I've kind of delved into have been very consistent with each other to some extent. It's not some big secrets, but they break it down nicely. I mean, it's not a big secret how to create a great campaign. You want it to be like a story, almost like an episode of a TV series to some extent. And a lot of this is breaking that down into those little components that go into making that episode, let alone the long-running series. So, Trials, it's no surprise that Trials is something that I am going to incorporate. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail on what the Trials do, because Trials are skill challenges. So we know Trials are in page is this? Page 13. One of the greatest gifts that 4th edition gave to us was skill challenges. A lot of us used to just call it role-playing, and we used to do a lot of these things that were presented, but it never was presented to us. I don't know if we ever really thought to do it. We never, I guess it never occurred to us to make a mechanic out of it. And it's not really, it's a very loose mechanic. It's not restrictive. And he calls them trials, and I really like that name for skill challenges. But without getting too deep down the rabbit hole in them, it's basically a series of very open-ended puzzle solving that the players can use their skills to unlock certain events and tasks that go on. And a lot of times in order to progress, you have these lists of tasks, and in order to progress, you have to get so many successes to be able to advance. So, for instance, repairing the portal, you need 4 successes before you can go on to harvesting the spell power. And you need 4 successes before casting the ritual, and then 3 successes before holding back the horde. And then to hold back the horde, there's a whole lot more successes you need. And you have to do all these things before you have 5 failures. And based on the number of failures, you have a different level of victory or defeat. Excuse me. So, that's the essence of a skill challenge. One of the tricks I've learned about skill challenges is that you don't typically, I don't like to let the players know that they're even in one. They can figure it out. They eventually figure out they're in one, but the whole idea is to kind of just role play these situations that start happening, and then let them naturally occur. Have this puzzle presented in front of them, and then they start trying to work on it, and before you know it, they're rolling skills. You're jotting down notes and determining whether they fail or succeed, and what level they do. I guess to some extent it might be good to let them know they're in one, because then they can approach it differently, because there's different ways you can assist, give advantage, and there's ways to knock if you fail and then you roll a critical success. Not that there's critical successes in skills, but you can roll crits in this. And a crit, you can either knock off a failure or count it as 2 successes. That's one option. So that is the nature of it. It's a very good storytelling tool that gets people into doing stuff more than just wanting to do combat challenges. These are the templates. They have. We'll get to the templates. This is an example of one where the general underlying DC of the trial is 15, and how many successes. The pace and the deadline really aren't necessarily important at this point. But there's a way you want to vary these, like repairing the portal. might be an easy thing, so you might make that an 11. Harvesting the spell power might be medium difficulty, so you might make that a 13. Casting might be 15, and then hold back the horde might be 17. So there's different fluctuations that you can do along the way for DCs. And it stands to reason the further along you get, the harder something might be to accomplish. So I mean, the fourth edition DMG, and there was the DMG 2. I think it was. I don't know if it was the DMG 2 or if there was a second printing. They did a little bit of a better job explaining skill challenges. They never really they made it seem very restrictive when it's a very, very loose and fluid system. I think that could be said about most of 4th edition. The interpretation was that it was a very, very restrictive, but it was never meant to be. It was meant to be something extremely robust. All those skills and powers, a lot of people saw them as confining, when in actuality the whole purpose of it was to present you with, this is how it could be done. It gave you a bunch of different mechanics that you should have been able to reflavor and everything in there to do what you wanted to do with it. As long as the underlying mechanics were okay, doesn't matter if it's a fireball or an ice ball, really, right? I mean, one sets things on fire, one might freeze things. There's that underlying difference, but if it does a 66 fireball and a 66 ice ball, it's the same thing. We're not going to get into, like I said, the finer details of this, but there's a lot of good information in this. I should note, this document at this point is absolutely free to download, and if you go to Griffyglyph.com, he has a class compendium, darker dungeons, Monster Maker, and Quick Quest. Quick Quest is its own little RPG based off of 5e. Monster Maker is a really awesome system and app for making monsters. He's got an app that's for it, but Darker Dungeons is the one that we're looking through now, and you can actually download the PDF, or you can actually go in. He's got it all in website form as well. So I'll be donating to his cause eventually, soon enough. For you can become a patron. Gives you some extra perks along the way. But I would suggest checking it out, because I mean, you can see this is presented in very nice fashion, very professional. There's no artwork. He's not an artist. He makes no stipulation about that. He makes no excuses. But anyway, he's got, like I said, he's got trial templates in here for, like, example, a chase, a crafting challenge, an escape, a heist, investigation, persuasion, general quest. And a quest is an interesting one, because a lot of the stuff that happens during a quest, you typically do that during a session. However, the way that this is presented in a way is that you can go, like, during your downtime, you could actually have your character go on a quest. He might have something that he has to go take care of during a long rest, which takes a week. So during that time, during that long rest, he might decide to do this quest instead, and it'd be a small, skill challenge that all of a sudden, your character's gone for a week. What is he doing? Well, this is it here. And it even includes stuff like defeating the boss, where you don't actually have to kill the boss per se in a combat. You just do it during the skill challenge, and you do it that way. And these things, I guess, aren't major, huge story elements. They're not plot hooks or plot focuses. There's something that just kind of tertiary happens. They could further a story along, obviously, and they can help tell a story of, it might tell a different story that's just an underpinning of what's going on, or they might help tie some loose ends together, stuff like that. But when you don't want to necessarily spend an entire session or two for this piece of the puzzle, you can do it in a quest challenge. And then unlock. Now we get on to Dread. This is a new section. A lot of these are, in the beginning, these are a little bit longer and more detailed. Whereas once we get through, I think Dread might be, once we get past Dread, the pieces are a little bit more bite-sized. Although Dread's not too bad. It's only about 5 pages. Dread is a concept where you have this malevolent force that has an overwhelming, or at least recognizable, presence in the area that you are in. Think of like a haunted house where when you walk in the door, you just feel something different. You feel a presence. You feel someone watching you. Dread is that atmosphere of the environment you are in. You walk into that murky swamp that's cursed, and it just, things feel differently. The woods are alive, or the swamp is alive. So this covers Dread in a mechanical sense, where you actually have points that you assign. It's a way to mechanize and balance the use of these things. For instance, you might have a powerful presence somewhere, and you'll have 40 points of maximum dread. And you use these points to do certain things that offer actual impact on the game. For instance, you could do, if you're walking through that cursed swamp, entangling roots. Like when a creature ends their turn after moving 5 feet or less. So if you're not moving in a more rapid pace, the DM can spend 1 point of dread, or the NPC would be probably a better, but then the creature is restrained up to 1 minute and may spend its action to attend. So you actually, the roots, the ground, if you're not moving fast enough, the ground grasps you and tries to pull you down and hold you fast. But the idea is to just, you choose some effects that impact the environment. Like for instance, necrotic decay. When a character would receive magical healing, you could spend 1 point of dread to reduce the amount healed by half. So, there's specific situations. These are dreadful consequences. Personally, does this fit into a frontier campaign? I think there could be specific areas that that definitely have the ability, especially since our big bad evil guy is into necromancy and he's raising an undead army. I think there could be some, and considering his ruins, the ruins he discovered that he's residing in and performing his experiments in, his ruins would definitely have this type of mechanic presented. And what's cool about this one is that we don't really need to introduce this right away. This is something that we can, once they encounter it for the first time, then you can introduce it. So this isn't a rule that anybody really has to be aware of. So dread, it's something I think we can experiment with. So this dread's on page 23. So it's going to be situational, does not need to be introduced to the players until first experienced. If I recall, is this the one? Yeah, here, malevolent anchors. There's some things to that you can incorporate that, like these, dread just doesn't exist. It actually has to manifest in the it can be manifested in various different ways, but they give some interesting methods. I'm trying to see if I can find it here. Like they talk about totems generate maximum, increase maximum dread. So you could have this area that is haunted for various specific reasons, and if you destroy those objects or those things that accumulate the dread, it lowers the max dread. They introduced the concept of hope. Hope is it's the counter of dread. So you could have an area that is also benevolent instead of just benevolent. So it works in the same way, except it's a place of good. Yeah, the linchpin is also talked about. They could like this one talks about the malevolent force can be tied to a dread zone by one anchor in particular. And I think almost a good analogy of that is a lich's phylactery is almost a linchpin, right? But there's other artifacts, places in general, sigils, oaths. So these are all pieces of weakness that generate dread, and the more powerful the dread, the more malevolent the force, the more dread. But, and that gives just more options for adventures, especially if there's all these anchors you have to go around destroying to try to weaken that force. And again, it mentions here it's even good side quest material. Going after those pieces. Like you can imagine, like in Ravenloft, the amount of dread that all of Barovia experiences. That is an overwhelming, malevolent force that isn't just, you feel it when you're there. Kind of goes into campaign integration of it, and it gives you some example, like just a spooky, you do a list of spooky effects that can happen, like a door slamming, a ghostly reflection, restless sleep, horrifying scream. These are things that are just ways to add certain flavor to add to the atmosphere, and you can have actual attacks that happen: freezing blood, spectral terror, frightful retreat. Yeah, and this one, like, just a simple attack, charisma versus AC. Target takes 1d10 plus charisma points of psychic damage. If you spend 1 point of dread, you move the target back 10 feet. So it's just different little, it's a little spooky one, and there's one for Abyssal. Just examples of how you could utilize dread as a mechanic in the game. Again, it's only got really 16. This one's got 16, this one's got 14, so you can flavor them how you want. But it just adds a little bit more atmosphere without really changing the mechanics all that much. It just adds a little more incentive on certain things. Character creation. This has got some really cool concepts that I'm really torn about. And the one thing that they really kind of focus on is the idea of random characters. And I'm sure that would be met with a lot of controversy and what do you mean random character? Players at your table might be reluctant. So it's definitely something that you want to keep an open mind about if you introduce the concept to it. Personally, I think it's brilliant. I've always been a fan of stuff like this. Traveler does a great job of this. Not necessarily the entirety of the character being random, but a lot of aspects of your character background, which Traveler character generation is all about your background. But this goes so far as to even taking it down to the race level, class level. But the one thing that I think if your players come at it with an open mind, they will be forced to step out of their comfort zone and try different concepts that they might not have otherwise tried. And it doesn't matter about to much extent. It doesn't min-maxing doesn't matter. Making the perfect optimal race and class and mechanic and feats and all those selections doesn't matter because the DM's going to adjust the encounters accordingly to challenge the players. So if you min-max, if everybody at the table min-max, just going to be fighting tougher encounters. I'll change the mechanics, or change the hit points, or the DM's going to adjust things accordingly. So when you step out of the comfort zone and try different combinations and try different things, the DM's going to adjust. So that being said, is this something that it's definitely something I plan on running this campaign multiple times, and I'd like to run it parallel. I have two groups at least running it at the same time concurrently. So my answer would be I'd love to go down this route. You can see even just on the generic table that they presented, you have a 1% chance to be an Azamar, a 1% chance to be a Triton, whereas you have about a 40% chance to be a human. So you kind of customize this. You can customize this table to what your campaign, how you want to weight your campaign. For instance, there's going to be several of these that I'm just going to take off in general. There's not going to be Kenku. There's lizard folk. You know what? There could be lizard folk. Monstrous, no. Tabaxi, probably not. Tiefling, probably going to take out Tiefling. They don't make sense for the campaign. However, I'm going to incorporate Warforged, there. Eberron. I don't know why half elf he's got only 1% chance for half elf and half orc. So I guess what we could do, Azamar don't really make. Do they make sense? 1% chance for an Azamar wouldn't be a big deal. So let's just make this table as what we might think it might look like. So character race T100. One thing I don't like about OneNote is I can't distribute these columns evenly, can I? No. It's the only beef I've ever really had. So we're going to customize this table a little bit. So we can still do 0-1. Azamar, Dragonborn. Not the biggest fan, but for now we could set this as a 1%. Dwarf. Elf. Definitely can be an elf. Furbog for sure. Gith? No. Gnome, yes. Goliath. Goliath doesn't really make sense. half elf. Let's see, do one more column. Half elf, definitely half elf, definitely half orc. Halfling, human, Kenku, no, lizard folk, yes. Monstrous, no. Tabaxi, no. Tiefling. Tiefling really don't make sense. We could do a 1% chance on Tiefling, I guess. And then Warforged are going to be a completely... I call them Soulforged in this campaign, and they would be an interesting story addition. So the question is, what percentages? I know Warforged is going to be 1%, 99%, 2% chance for lizard folk. Furbog's going to be a 1% chance. Gnome should be a 2% chance. So let's just start with, let's see where we go with. Let's give them a 12% chance. 12% chance. Furball 1%. Gnomes 18. Say a 3% chance. Yeah, Fanatic, you know, I am pulling them out. I am pulling the ones out, but Tiefling, I think it doesn't necessarily make... It would be so incredibly rare. I only think that a 1% chance... Tieflings would be a more... You would never... Rarely encounter Tieflings in this game world. Same with Aasimar. As an adventurer, you could. Being as an adventurer, you're more likely to see a Tiefling or Aasimar adventurer than you would just kind of encountering them randomly, if that makes any sense. The Tieflings and Aasimar would potentially be more likely to be drawn to being an adventurer. So I don't want to necessarily rule them out entirely. There could be ways that they exist as adventurers. And I don't want to necessarily, like, the ones I am rolling out, like Kenku and Goliath and stuff like that, these are definitely no. A tiny chance for it to occur, yes. I think that's what I would prefer. It's not that I don't want them in the game. It's just that they would be so rare in the game that I want it to feel special. If that makes sense. Half elves. Oh wait, why did I only do 15 to... It should be 15 to 26. 27. Let's do 30. It's a 5% chance. Yeah, I don't want... Yeah, it's... it's a weird, yeah. You don't want to pull them all. You don't want to just completely. You want it to feel special. If you're going to go down this random route, when you hit something, you want it to be special. You don't want it to be, gosh, they're everywhere. You know, tiefling. I can just randomly, I can pick and choose my character. So, give half elves a 5% chance as well. Some of the backstory will make a little bit more sense, and I think for instance, this is I don't know if you the game world. Think of Frontier America in like 1650, Jamestown, and basically there's a few towns along this coast in this new world. The game world itself has underwent about 10,000 years prior and a cataclysmic event based on the rupturing of arcane magic, the corruption of arcane magic. And it basically wiped out all civilization for all intents and purposes. So civilization had to start rebuilding itself and repopulating the land. And they've discovered this new continent, and there's a lot. There'll be, like, on this continent, there'll be furbogs. There'll be more wild elves. There'll be orcs across the mountains. There'll be lizard men. But the more where they came from overseas tends to be a little bit more traditional, tropey. Mostly human, some elves, some gnomes were the keepers. Gnomes are play a very significant role in the history of this world. Whereas the gnomes created what I call the Soul Forged. And the Soul Forged are basically fueled. They created the Soul Forged to fight. They use arcane magic as a fuel source, for lack of a better term. They consume raw arcane magic. And they were a little bit too efficient at their job, and it caused this big rupture and this I call arcanaclysm, where basically arcane magic does not exist to an extent. Well, it's without getting too deep. It does exist, but it's in such rare occurrences, and it's even outlawed. Wizards are to study arcane magic is completely outlawed. Sorcerers typically become outcasts. So the gnomes are kind of hold all the history of this world in their archives. No one else knows about it. So that's why there's these ruins all across the planet from the old civilization that are encountered occasionally, and the adventurers will encounter. And the Warforged or Soulforged only exist right now as empty husks. They basically ran out of fuel. And are just kind of like, it's like if you almost think of like Mad Max, just finding a car somewhere that's just sitting there. It can't be, there's no fuel for it. It just sits there as a husk of what it used to be. That's what the Warforged are now. But magic is starting to come back. That's part of the premise of the campaign. So this is why I don't even like Warforged. That's why I make them an antagonist in my games. They typically are antagonists in my games, and that's it. So the Soulforged are to be. I think that would be an interesting twist that someone could play one in this game world where they're magic consumers. What's up, Bubba? Let's see, where are we at? Might have to extend some of these percentages. Halfling, I still want to stop. 43 to 54 is 55 to, that's about right. It's about a 42% chance to be human. Oh, here, I goofed. 95. 8. 99 and 100. I can choose their own. So if we go the random character creation method, actually that should be header 2. This should be header 1. I think it introduces some cool. And the sub-race, we could still, if they hit one of the races that have sub-races, then you just roll off this table. Let me look at the monsters. Bugbear, no. I mean, bugbears exist. Goblins, all these things exist. I don't think I want them as playable races. So we don't really need to cover this table. This is basically the table we just made. Basically replaces this table. Same with backgrounds. Class we have to create, right? Because there's not going to be. You could have a 1% chance to be a wizard. Warlocks. Warlocks are such a new concept to me. They're not, but I just rarely. I don't know if I've ever seen one. For whatever reasons, people never don't tend to play them. Artificer, Bard, Clear Druid, Artificer, Warlock. Are Warlock spells arcane or divine? Or the magical is granted from a patron, so that's why it always. Fifth edition doesn't really have a distinction between arcane and divine spellcasting. Is that really? Wizards, warlocks, sorcerers, and bards are commonly called arcane magic. Witches, paladins, rangers are divine magic. So warlocks are kind of classified in the arcane sense. So basically whatever we want to choose. Warlocks would probably be still rare. Not nearly as rare as a wizard. Let me copy that whole. Barbarian. Bard. They don't really draw their powers the same way. It's not really a study of magic, right? I mean, I guess we can change lore to accommodate. We don't want to be too overly restricted. Warlock, wizard, choose your own. Do you want a 2% chance? I think that's enough for flavor. Actually, we could do. Well, we still got some other ones to reduce a little bit. Like warlocks. We get a 4% chance, double the chance. 4, 5, 6, 9, 7. Sorcerers would be just as common as any other class because it's not, they become outcasts, but it's not that they don't exist. It's the studying, the dissuasion of people from studying arcane arts. But when it's in your, when you're born with it, you really don't have that option. They can beat it out of you, but it's still part of who you are. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if everyone is 10 points, let's see where that leaves us. It's going to leave us a few. Did I mess up? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Yeah, it did. There's 10, so they should have been 9 points each. Oops. going to be a few extra points. Oops. I did that wrong. No, this should be 72. 81. 80 through 90. So, do we break that? I guess 91 through 97, it's a smaller chance, right? So, it's 91, 92, 93, 45, 7% chance, whereas everybody else has a 9% chance. Whereas 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. What was our thing before? 94. So we would have to account for 4 more points, or 3 more points, 91, 92, 93. What if we did it this way? Oops. You're not going to let me do that? You're not even going to let me do that. So we go 0. Blocks will still be less common, and then here, 91 through 93, choose from above. So they have a 4% chance to choose anything from Barbarian to Sorcerer. 4% chance to hit Warlock, 2% chance to hit Wizard, and 0 to choose anything. I think for now, I think that just as a baseline, it works. Okay, so back to the mechanics of this and how this works. They have some, it's pretty gritty, and I haven't decided however I'm going to do this. But they do have some general rules. You roll your class, or you roll your race, you roll your class, you roll your background, and then you roll your ability scores, and you do it 3d6 in order. Then you re-roll one ability score of your choice. And keep the best result of those two. And then you can do one swap. After you re-roll, you may then make one swap of any 2 attribute scores. Then you apply your racial bonuses, and then calculate your modifiers. 3d6 is pretty steep, but obviously, again, this kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. It doesn't matter what your stats are. what the party stats are, I'm going to be adjusting the campaign accordingly to make it challenging. So the question becomes more, and I tend to like the grittier campaigns like that. Typically we'll do 46, drop lowest in order. 3d6 in order, allowing one reroll and one swap, could be fun. Low scores can be very fun to role play. And they even go so far as to, they do character details, your appearance and your family, randomize that. Character memories, randomize that. Based on how old you are, you'll have X amount of rolls on this table. So, young adult 1, early middle age 2, late middle age 3, old 4, very old 5. So your character could even be very old. It's not weighted that way, obviously, but you have all these different memories and then you can even roll for motivation. Question is, how far down the rabbit hole do we stop here with the randomization, or do we just go all in? That could be something we could talk to the players about in session 0, how they want to do it. They also have habits. You could roll on a habit. Roll what your personal quest is. Starting gold. They do with something also called, I'm not sure. One of the only things I didn't like out of this book is the fate point. Basically, you only use it to cheat death. I'm not sure if it makes sense at that point, but I don't know how frequent death can occur in such a gritty campaign. Typically, you would think it would be more frequently, but they do have these options for race, background, and class, where you just make one roll. You must randomly generate one element from your choosing from race, background, and class, and pick the remaining 2 normally. Or you do one free reroll after generating your race, background, and class. You can re-roll one element of those and keep the preferred result. One free selection, which is the opposite of one reroll. One free selection is you can choose one of the 3 from those tables that you want. And then there's this opt-in randomizer rewards where you may pick your race, background, and class manually, but if you decide to randomly generate an element, you gain a reward. The more elements that you choose, the bigger the final reward. So if you only choose to randomize one element, you get 10 gold piece bonus. For a starting character, it could be a little bit. If you choose to do 2 elements, you get 10 gold pieces and a skill point. And if you do all 3, you get 10 gold pieces, a skill point, and 1 ability point, which is pretty huge. So I'm not necessarily... I don't know. I think I'd like the one free reroll. After you roll all 3, you can choose one of the ones to re-roll on. taking the one of your choice. Roll twice, pick once. When you roll for your race, background, or class, you may roll twice. I don't like that. So I think it's going to be one free reroll. And I might throw in the ability point reward for this system. Randomized magic, I'm not really concerned about. I don't really. Ability arrays. So you could, this is different methods. You could do 46 drop lowest and do it in order. Assigning your score. Shared party array is interesting. Everybody rolls the array together. So everybody, all characters roll 3d6. One, to get 6 different numbers, and then all six of those numbers rolled. They place them wherever they want, but they all get the same 6 results. I think that's kind of interesting. And then static array. One option, there's a no duplicate feats thing. Is pretty interesting. Probably not going to do it. But the no duplicate feats is a feat can only be taken once across the entire party. Once it's taken, it's locked until that character leaves the party, dies, or loses the feat by some other means. It's pretty interesting. Not gonna lie. Racial feats only. The blacklist you could just exclude. I think the basic generation is. I want to see it in action during session 0 before I making a final assessment on it. But again, we tweaked those tables, so it's very difficult to be a wizard or a warlock. Bards and sorcerers make sense. In bards, their use of magic is a lot different than inspirational magic, or I'm not so certain I am against. It's not really a study of magic per se. Alright, so what else we got going on here? Anybody got any questions, or I'm just kind of rambling and would like to know what you guys said. If you're just joining, we're going over Darker Dungeons by Griffyglyph, which is an incredible compilation of alternative rules for 5th edition. And I'm seeing which ones. I read it yesterday. I don't know how this thing went under my radar, but to some extent it didn't. Because a lot of the stuff, it's pulled from other sources and rewritten. For instance, he's got skill challenges in here, which he calls trials. He's got journeys. I love the journey system by Adventures in Middle Earth. Although, like I said, he listed the Angry GM here. I'm not so... I want to do some research on that and see if Angry GM came up with the system, or why he's referenced here. Or maybe there's 2 components that... Doesn't seem like there's 2 components. But I'll have to research that a little bit. But it's got all the different things in here. And this is... you can find this on... Griffyglyph. It's free PDF, and it's beautifully put together. He's not an artist, so he uses icons, but his layout game's on point. Anyway, Griffyglyph.com, and then he's got Darker Dungeon. He's got Class Compendium, Darker Dungeons. Class Compendium is a work in progress. Monster Maker's awesome. I was looking at that yesterday as well. And he's got Quick Quest, which is like a 5e. It's D&D light. This is your character sheet. Anyway, that's a little Griffyglyph.com, and he's got all the stuff he's working on. It's all he's constantly updating everything, although he hasn't really done any updates since last year. But I know he's streaming and stuff. I think he's working more on Monster Maker right now and making it a Foundry. I think for Foundry Virtual Tabletop. So anyway, let's get back to what we're going on here. So we just did character creation. Right, we did character creation, so is that where we left off? Yep. Okay. So feature changes. This is where there's a lot of little snippets of plug and play. The previous systems were a lot bigger in scope, where these is just a little bit more snapping. Hello, weary warlord. Welcome. Yeah, if you guys have questions, I'm trying to keep an eye on chat. I'm trying to ramble as much. Usually I don't talk when I'm doing stuff. What I'm thinking, I'm usually deep in thought. So this is kind of all new to me. So I'm trying to just ramble as I'm discussing these things. But if you have any questions or have any comments or input or anything, please chime in. So, okay. Ignore any racial line restrictions. Yeah, alignment really never ever. There's always these. Thanks, Fanatic. I say a lot. I know that. I'm trying to work on that too. Join the party. Still waiting for my coffee to get cold. The bad thing about really good coffee mugs is that it takes forever for it to cool down. What do you think about this stuff so far, Fanatic? I know you just got here weary, but what do you think? I mean, have you seen it? Are you looking at this? Do you look at this at all, or have you ever seen it? There's some. I haven't even gotten to some of the best stuff yet, man. I'm doing some world building and campaign. I have a unique world that's based on. Yeah. And Weary, I'll kind of give you a recap on what I think so too. And when I saw this, I'm like, man, this is really. So, I'm really kind of surprised. I really haven't seen much of. What if D&D met Frontier America? This is my campaign pitch and what I'm working on. Right. Yeah, I'm not opposed to other systems. I love the 2D20 system, man. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, Warlord, the campaign is D&D meets Frontier America, circa 1650. Think of like Jamestown. It was really people just started to settle and create settlements and explore the land. You're talking 50 years of town building along the coast of this new land that was discovered. So there's maybe 5 settlements. I actually started to create a map on it. Is this it here? I'm not sold on the map yet. It was just more of a brainstorming thing. So think of Frontier America, the main world, wherever. I haven't figured out what the cultures are over here. They sailed over and discovered this land. In about 50 years time, they've got a few towns along the coast. But most of the land is still, I don't want to call it savage land, because there's going to be a lot of wild elves predominantly along the coast, but there's also going to be orc and goblin tribes, and past the mountains eventually there'll be lizard folk. Dwarves can be not necessarily I know gnomes will live in these mountains, and probably dwarves, there'll be a dwarven home in there as well somewhere. But largely what's happened is basically civilization was wiped out about 10,000 years prior and had to restart, and as a result of it, arcane magic is outlawed. Not that it's hard, its presence is minimal as it is, because I won't get into all the details of that. Anyway, think of it as circa 1650 America, frontier. There's all these different fur trades, mines, just starting to mine in lumber camps and stuff, little fishing towns. But it's a very raw. The natives are typically, that's what I was just discussing. The natives are typically, there's going to be a lot of wild elves, orc tribes in here. And there'll be lizard folk beyond the mountains. So lizard folk, you might encounter lizard folk once or twice. It's not going to be savage country this is not a let's colonize the Indians type of thing. I think that's a little bit too, it's not necessarily the route I want to go down. It seems to be a touchy subject these days. We're not looking, and plus I don't think they're already tolerant of they're used to living with elves, and they know who wild elves are. It's not like they came here and encountered this new, look at these weird people. It's not how it is. They understand that they've met other people before in the main world, so it's more about, it doesn't mean there's not going to be some pushback or politics about it, but it just means that they're going to be working more to get along and working together more than they're working apart. It's still a wild, savage land. It's just not going to be these warring tribes of elves. There'll be a few tribes of elves, but not. Well, that I was like, that could get. Oh, that could get there. Yeah. The political climate right now, nowadays in real life, I hate that it can impact the D&D world, but that's outside of the scope of what I'm just kind of throwing those out there as caveats. Look, I'm not trying to kill a bunch of engines. That's not what I'm here for. We're here to create a campaign world in a world that I at a time period I don't think has really been explored much. And I think Frontier America meets, instead of gunpowder, you have you have fantasy instead of gunpowder. You have this really interesting marriage that could really be really cool. You have other countries that possibly have founded a lot in different areas, but communication is so different. But in those times, it's what they're going to find on this continent. Who knows? And that's one of the cool things. No, I don't know if I'd call it a Western. If the underlying story arc, I have one of the main. Where's my notes? One of the things I did on my first stream was kind of go through these processes that were out there to discuss, kind of explore what's happening. So the genre is low magic fantasy, frontier America. Divine magic would still be present. The spheres of influence are derived from celestial bodies, not deities. And to kind of how divine magic works is you don't really follow deities per se. You follow the spheres of magic and you manifest them in your own way. So you might follow the sphere of war, and to you war might be a completely focused on fire, or even death. It could be fire and death. That might be your chakra, your mantra, your reasoning for manifesting this into the war domain. You pull from fire and death. Whereas life, there's life, but life could also mean life and death. I mean, however the characters choose to manifest, how to focus their spheres, is how they draw the energy to perform divine magic. And interestingly, the more you can still build followers, you can still grow congregations, you can still manifest, you can still create religion around these things, right? And one of the things that, instead of gods being present, people manifest the gods. It's not like God's created everything. People are actually creating the gods here. But it's for a short time. If you're familiar with, have you ever played Conan Exiles? If you build up enough, I can't remember the divine resource, you can summon a deity for a short period of time. It works much like that. Do interpretations of your religions. I'm not sure. What do you mean? You do interpret? Well, you just kind of reskin them. So anyway, the universe Ark. It's called the Ark. It's the Ark system. So for all intents and purposes, Ark Terra is where everything, the planet that everybody that resides on, and they kind of all revolve around Ark Terra. So Ark Terra, for all intents and purposes, acts as the sun for all these other moons. And these are basically the elements, and then you have death and life. Ark Necron, Ark Esprit. And then you have water, air, fire, and earth. And then out here in the distance is another. Ark Terra is actually, this whole system revolves around Ark Magi, which is arcane magic, which is actually, this is actually the sun of this system. And then you have Ark Umbra, which is pure shadow. How this all relates to each other doesn't necessarily need. Don't have. There's other things that I have planning in the future that outside of, again, a little bit of the scope of this. Tier of the God of Potential are interpreted as set potentials, limiting people to the stations that God gave them, and other believers see it as unlimited potential. It's your duty to realize as much of the potential as possible. Gotcha. Yeah, well, man, one of my favorite classes to play are clerics and paladins. Because of that relationship beyond your other characters and yeah. That's why in real life I'm a deist, because I think when I study other religions, when I hear the stories and read the stories about that are founding other religions, there's so many common threads, like the Tale of Gilgamesh and Noah's Ark, that I think there's the motes of truth are found in all the different stories and religions. I mean, that's what that's just what I believe right now. So I think there, I think it's funny when not to like bring in real. I think it's funny when we look at our ancient ancestors and we marvel at how technologically advanced they were in so many aspects, and how sophisticated they were, and how these things were impossible, right? Like the pyramids, the ziggurats, on opposite ends of the world, mind you, but all these different things, the heads at Easter Island, Stonehenge, the Mayan calendar, all these things, we marvel at them. Their capability for irrigation, it was just all these things. We go, gosh, they were so, and then we look at how they were religiously, and we kind of mock them. If you're so advanced in all these different, if they were advanced in so many different things, how come we look at them as so primitive when it comes to religion? It doesn't quite jive with me. You know what I mean? Maybe they were just as sophisticated as the religion as everything else. There's no reason not to believe that. Anyway, yeah, I can't disagree with that. I kind of think I'm under the belief that he just started things in motion, kind of made the rules, and then just said, here you go, this is your sandbox, don't screw it up. I don't think he gets involved, but It's just my belief. I think it's too hard to. I think there's things that are too perfect. Ecologies are too perfect. Things work too perfectly in too many situations. Even with all the chaos around it, there's so much order that there had to be rules made. Yeah, pays cut. Yeah, I guess to some extent, yeah. That's true that. Yeah, so we came up with a lot of this. There is an underlying evil storyline. Karkta, he's a frail, broken man that's trying to his body kept failing him over and over again. I guess you could think of like Walter White or Raceland, or where his body failed him his whole life, or Mr. Glass from Unbreakable, that he started becoming very bitter towards the living, and in the process he's trying to resolve and become immortal, but also in the process making the world pay for everything he's had to endure. So he's begun to, yeah. Players typically are trolls. So Karkta is trying to unlock the secrets of immortality. He's experimenting. He found some ruins in this savage frontier world from the times of the old Arcane Age, and he starts studying magic from all the tomes that were found within. And in such, he starts experimenting on the elves. He believes that there's a link between the long lives of elves and immortality. So he starts to experiment on them, starts to create undead to further his cause. And if he's unable to achieve immortality, he wants to wipe out. He wants to effectively bring on another arcanicalism. So if he can't have his way, he's going to make sure everybody else pays. So that's the underlying. He needs to find since gnomes are the keepers of the all of the ancient stories. He learned of that in the ruins as well, but he's looking to abduct a gnome as well. But he regularly sends out, and it's not uncommon. So he's for wild elves to not come back from their hunts. So he's been able to isolate them on occasion. It's sometimes that happens in wild elf society. It's not an uncommon occurrence. So he kind of hides in that. All right, let's get back to. Yeah, alignment I'm not too worried about. Animal handling, they have a cool approach. And we'll get into. Eventually, we'll get into some of the crafting stuff that they talk about. But animal handling measures your ability to recall lore about animals or creatures with the beast keyword, and to interact with them. They cover the open. Did I cover the open skills yet? No, I don't think we got there yet. Anyway, there's a method in here, and we'll get to it too, that you completely erase your skills as your abilities tie to the skills. So you could use, this is kind of how D20 works, or 2D20, where you can take any of your attributes and apply it to any of your skills as long as it makes sense. Yet, correct. Yes, there was a method to that madness. Yes, I wanted to start a session 0 hopefully in June, and I wanted to do it soon. So yeah, I don't necessarily need any huge cities right now. Although the primary city is starting to become a little bit more cosmopolitan, I guess. The primary town. I haven't decided yet. Yes, there is a method to that. It could have easily started on the other continent, and then part of it was the journey. But I wanted it to be a little bit established, because I think I was I think it's a kind of a fascinating time that really doesn't get explored very much. So nature now, they're kind of separating animal handling and nature entirely. Oh, the skills applying to the thing. Well, we'll get into that, but it's a really cool, and it makes sense. There's intelligence, and like some of those things shouldn't always apply to each other when you can, like intimidation stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. City building that's a tough nut to crack. I've built a few, and it for a place that they're going to be, if they're exploring in the city a lot, and there's a lot of adventure in the city, then you can justify it. But if it's only like a stopping point, then sometimes it's a little, yeah. You're having to ad-lib quite a bit as well. Let's see, background features. You don't gain features. You can emulate these effects, make appropriate checks. I like the idea of true dark vision, where they separate. Basically, it brings back low light vision. Yeah, I think we're gonna. I really like the dark vision and low light vision. Let's just bold these right now. Basically, this is just we're just listing up potential rule items we want to explore. Sunlight sensitivity, initiative. Initiative. I like this concept here, but there's a better initiative system. Active initiative, Active initiative is so cool, man. Spider subculture. Dude, you should check out the dread mechanics in here. Do you have this book? It's free. The Weary Warlord. Do you have this one? Darker Dungeons. The dread mechanic would be awesome for that district. There could be a malevolent force in there that's causing it, and that dread thing would be really cool. Just, go download it, man. It's free. Go to Griffyglyph or Griffyglyph.com/darker dungeons, and it's a free PDF, man. And it's got 180 pages of just awesome stuff. And here, I'll open it up in a second window so you can this section on Dread. Oh, you're not going to let me go there? Page 23. This section on Dread would be awesome for a district like that. Isolating and creepy. People avoid it because it just feels nasty. This is perfect for that. Very cool system. And basically, at that point, you're almost role-playing you're role-playing like the district itself. You're not role-playing like any character. You're role-playing that creepy malevolence that is present everywhere. And this goes in, oh man, that would be so perfect for that. Alright, where are we at? Dark Vision. Initiative, I like this initiative where it's intelligence based because it makes sense. Reaction speed is determined first and foremost by your thoughts. The faster you think, the faster you react. Makes sense. Stats go with. That being said, we'll get to an active initiative. Or maybe here, you know what? Let's talk about active initiative right now. Because it's a cool freaking topic. Active initiative. Come on. Get back up there. Active initiative. Active initiative. This is one of the coolest concepts in this book too. There's several, but this one is, when I read it, I'm like kind of blown away. So active initiative, so combat is kind of chaos, pure chaos, right? Initiative is cool and everything, but active initiative, once you determine who goes first, so whoever initiates the combat is the person that goes first. And when they're done with their turn, they choose who goes next. So as soon as you're done, you can choose any other any other character at the table, any other NPC or the monsters or any group of, however you have your monsters grouped. You can choose who goes next. So you can kind of really coordinate and choreograph combat a little bit better like that. So yeah, it can be any other creature character, hazard, or group of monsters that hasn't acted yet in that round. So as long as you haven't acted, as long as that person hasn't acted, or character, or whatever, you can choose who that is. Once every person has finished their turn, end the round as normal. Clear up any interrupting is the concept that throws the monkey wrench into this active initiative system. If you haven't taken your turn yet this round, you have a chance to steal the initiative and take the next turn even if you weren't nominated. This is called an interrupt. There are two main ways you can do it. You can spend an inspiration to interrupt the combat and take your turn. Or if you take some damage. If you took damage during the last turn, you can choose to interrupt for free. So this applies to the creatures as well. So if I go, I'm going to smash in, I hit the creature and go, oh, you take it from here. And then that person goes, I go, as a DM, I go, he took damage, he's going to react to taking that damage. So that's the entire concept of active initiative, and I think it's really brilliant. It eliminates the roles. Rolling initiative is it's such a classic trope, right? Roll initiative, but as soon as you determine who goes first, then it just becomes this fluid thing, and it also makes everybody more attentive. We're on character initiative 20. I don't go until 2. I'm gonna sit there, kind of dawdle, and no, man, you might get called right away. You might get called. You're kind of more attentive to combat. Yeah, anyone who takes damage during your turn can steal the initiative at the end of your turn. So be careful who you attack. That's a pretty cool line of strategy in there. So if I attack and do damage on Big Bad Evil Guy. Big Bad Evil Guy, my turn's over, right? So Big Bad Evil Guy goes. He doesn't want to give anybody else initiative or anybody else their action in the party. He'll attack the guy that just attacked him, knowing that, in the meta part of it, knowing that I can't attack back. I can't get initiative back. I can't interrupt because I already took my turn. So he might choose me, and then he's going to choose his minions. Then the minions are going to choose. No, it's easier to keep track of. You don't have a combat table. You don't need a combat table. You just have a coin out. You just have like a thing that you flip after you take your turn. You flip it, or you just check it off. You can have the characters do that. You could have just a little flag that if they have their action, it's up, and if they don't, it gets put down. All you gotta do is look at the table. It'd be super easy to keep track of. You don't have to keep track of all those different numbers. But it makes for a really, really, like I said, it's a very dynamic initiative. I think it's brilliant. So actually, I'm going to actually write this. Active initiative. We know we're going to be trying this out. So that's active initiative. So it's very simple. And if you took, well, if you took damage, you could burn. Yeah, if you took damage in the previous round, you can initiate. You can interrupt in the next far out. So, yeah, if you haven't taken your turn yet, you have a chance to steal initiative. Yeah. If you took damage during the last turn, you can choose to interrupt for free. I think that's a little bit misworded. If you want to interrupt, you must do so before the next person starts their turn. You can't interrupt if you've already acted this round, and you can't interrupt an ally. So there's some basic rules there. Anyway, I'm digging that. Where are we at again? I should choose class. Oh yeah, initiative, inspiration. You can hold up to 3 inspiration points at once. You can spend inspiration points to make an attack roll saving throw ability check with advantage. That's normal. Gaining inspiration. You can't be inspired by the same characteristic multiple times. Languages. Yeah, I'm not too concerned about language. Has never been really a problem. Codes and communication. Light. It's just a minor change to the light. It's now a concentration cantrip. We'll get into that. Racial changes, a little bit outside of the scope. I'm not too worried about this stuff right now. Class changes, same thing. I'm not too worried about the class changes right now. I'll dig into a little bit deeper into that. I'm more on the worried about the campaign side of things. Oh, rookie characters. Yeah, I really like this too. I don't know, man. Yeah, it's worth trying out. I'll experiment with that, the heck with that, because it sounds amazing. It sounds more natural. It sounds like it flows. Rather than, gosh, I gotta delay my action, or I just took an action, I gotta wait. You know, I went last round, I gotta go last every round, whereas I might go super quick again, and you just gotta be, everybody's gotta be alert. Rookie characters, I'm a huge fan of level 0 characters. Love it, love it, love it. So he calls them rookie characters. So the answer to this is I know I'm going to be using it. What's cool about this stuff is rookie character, you can do all this stuff in session 0. Basically, you just start with a race and a class. I'm sorry, a race and a background. And based on your background, you get hit points, hit die. And then you start eventually at level 0. And once you get 150 XP, you get to go level 1. But one of the cool things about this is these hit points you start with on your background, not the con part of it, just the initial part of it. When you take your first level, you get those, you keep those hit points. So if an urchin goes to being a warrior, he's got 3 plus con, and he gets the 10 points. So first level character with 13 points plus con. Very cool. So that being said, that could go, you'd go that route. definitely love this concept. You get a random saving throw that they're proficient in. Is that it for that rookie characters? No, you have to be very careful. There's a lot of 1/4, and also you don't have to necessarily fight, but there's a lot of 1/8 and 1/4 creatures out there. But you could also do skill challenges to defeat. One of my favorite level 0 scenarios that I run is a zombie horde. Zombie horde's overwhelming the city, right? And the party takes up to try to survive the onslaught of the zombie horde. The party takes up shelter in a temple or an inn that's abandoned for whatever reason. It could be abandoned, could be people in it. It doesn't really matter at that point. But the object of the skill challenge is they have to take parts of the inn or the temple and batten down the hatches. They got to try to cover up all the ways that the zombie army, the weak points. And if they fail those skill challenges, if they fail any of the skill rolls, that could be a potential breach where they might have to fight a couple zombies or even just one zombie at level 0. So you go through all the skill challenge of this overwhelming zombie horde, and you have this feeling of the zombies are all around you, right? The atmosphere is they're all, and if they don't batten down the hatches right and seal up all the potential breaches that the zombies could get in, makes for a really fun skill challenge. And you're a level 0 party fighting this overwhelming horde of zombies. So that's basically how that works. And if one zombie breaks in because they, then 4 or 5 characters. No, not a group. No. And you can remember you as a DM you're tailoring these things, right? You're tailoring the party, the encounters. You could have this level 0 group of adventurers help man the battlements. It's right there. It's got the table on here: 1d4, 1d6, 1d8, 1d10. It's got hit points are anywhere from 3 to 6. You have to be careful. You don't throw up creatures that the zombie can do 1 hit point of damage, right? You tailor these. You tailor the encounters to what they're facing. But you could also have this level 0 party fighting back a dragon attack from a city. Instead of, they're not going to fight it head on, but they could very easily be manning the gates, manning the ballista, manning the catapults, whatever it is that they're dealing with. They could be working in this larger group and still be a part of the action, a significant part of the action. It doesn't mean that they're going to get hit with dragonfire. But they can sure as heck fight a dragon at level 0. Of course, you're not going to get full experience points because the object is to eventually, ward it off. Huge. There's dude at level you can especially with skill challenges, man. You can do anything. You can set any type of encounter to make these grand scale encounters down to bite-sized chunks. It's all in here, man. Yeah. light. Most of them get light armor. Some get medium. Proficiency bonuses +2. Simple weapon proficiency. Some have martial. Some have some starting cantrips. Some have some starting cantrips. You're running skill checks. So yeah, it's all. This goes into detail on it. Rookies are not completely. They have a reserve of grit and determination to dig into. So you got destiny points as well. If you can spend a little. So basically, these destiny points also are used to. Kind of do some heroic things as a level 0. So yeah, as a keepsake, you may keep one notable feature from your time as a rookie. Choose one of the following. So you can keep your saving throw, you can keep your armor weapon proficiency, you can keep your cantrip, or you can keep your extra hit points. So when you go from level 0 to level 1, you can keep any one of those items in there. So yeah, monsters traps. You just set up, especially with if you use his monster maker, he makes. You can make these level howling skeleton, level 1 striker, level -1 striker, necromage, level 0 controller. So this thing, these only do 1 damage. Low spell DCs, low attack bonus. They've got some rookie adventure seeds in here too, examples of what. That's the Village of Flames Dragon Heist. All these different, just examples of different adventure seeds. Anyway, huge. If you've never done level 0, man, you should try it. What did your characters do before they were heroes? It's some really cool and fun role playing. It also lets you help establish how your characters know each other. I like to do that stuff before we start actual sessions. I like to get all that out of the way. When we start on day 1, session 1, the characters need to know each other to some extent. Well, this one's probably going to be controversial. Managing your inventory and wear and tear. I never thought I would be sold on these things and the ammunition dice. These are 3 items that you would have said, hey, you should have inventory and wear and tear. Let me turn off my... All these things here, you never would have convinced me that I would say, yeah, let's do inventory. Yeah, let's do item degradation and wear and tear. Let's do ammunition. But after looking at these systems, I kind of want to try them. Inventory makes sense in this campaign as well, because I'm going to be using also strongholds and followers. The Matt Colville book. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's about building strongholds and gathering followers. And in this frontier world, it makes sense. So strongholds and followers. It's a pretty good book. It's basically it's just a method of accumulating, building a stronghold for your characters to use as quote unquote a base of operation, I guess. So that's going to be one thing. Based on that, you're going to have to worry about if they're going to be building this fortress of whatever they're doing. Part of it's going to be funded. The way that it's going to work out with the campaign is part of it's going to be funded by the mainland, the homeland. But there's going to be some things that they're going to have to monitor, but they're going to have to be worried about moving vast, or at least coordinating, moving mass amounts of something. So this inventory system, I mean, they're not going to be bringing several tons of stone or to their stronghold. To build something, right? Anyway, this is just a very lightweight inventory system that just talks about using bulk, inventory slots in bulk, and you just have things that take up slots, based on the size of the item, and how much you can carry. So, like, for instance, a medium-sized creature, a typical human, has 18 inventory slots plus their strength bonus. And then they've got everything assigned a bulk number, pretty much. So something like and they're not worried about weight. They're just more worried about the bulk side of things. It's like 100 coins takes up one inventory slot. And it has rules about dragging objects, wearing objects, carrying. You automatically get a free ration box. Like, these are just like things that sit off to the side that don't count. A ration box, water skin, and purse that holds up to 100 coins. After that is when you get into these creature inventory, or the inventory slots in bulk, and then it goes into encumbrance if you're carrying more than your speed is halved. Various things. How to determine expertise in armor gives you a bonus. Transporting goods. Storage containers, nested containers. All these different things that I'm not going to go down into the nitty-gritty of the mechanics on it. It's just a very lightweight, interesting inventory system that feels like it fits into the flavor of this campaign, of this world. So I'm going to include it for now. You can always, these nice thing about these things, we can always just pull them out if we don't like it. So active inventory, page 53. The next one I really like too. God, people would tell me, hey, the condition of your weapon and equipment. No, that's too much. It's a very simple system. Item degradation is just managed. You get notches on things. Notches reduce the quality of the item until you get that item repaired. So any object that can suffer damage can become notched. Objects generally fall into one of 4 categories: armor, weapons, spellcasting, focus, and miscellaneous items. It's very simple. If you take a crit, your armor gets a notch. If you fumble, your weapon gets a notch. Armor, if you get for each notch reduces your total armor class by 1. Somebody crits you, they put a kink in your armor. You got a weak spot in your armor until it's replaced. Makes sense. It's very simple. It's very lightweight. Weapons. For your damage, you drop a D. So if you have let's say you have a mace that does 1d8 versus damage, you fumble and it has a notch in it. It now does 1d6 damage until you get it repaired. So basically, you just find where you are on this chart. If you have a 1d12 item, it's now 1d10. If it's got 2 notches, it's 1d8. If your short sword has 2 notches on it, it's only doing 1 point of damage. It's very ineffective right now until you can get it repaired. That's how weapon damage works. Spellcasting focus. Each notch reduces your total spellcasting ability by 1 for any action which involves that action. So what is this going to do? You're going to carry a spare weapon with you. You're going to carry a spare focus. You're going to carry not spare armor probably, but you might carry repair tools. The mending spell does not work unless the item is completely broken. Shattered gear. Gear can shatter. It can have up to like a sturdy item. Wood, metal can have up to 10 notches. So it takes 10 fumbles to destroy a creature, destroy a sword. That's not really a huge ordeal, right? So, but if you got to get it repaired. You got to keep your items up. You can get. This opens up a possible side items for tempering gear, which makes your gear more resistant to wear and tear. So normal quality, you gain 1 notch on a fumble. If you get something that's, go out and find something and get it purely, get pure tempered steel, it only gains half a notch every time you fumble. And then there's rare and then astral. There's a cost involved. It also increases the value of the item. It increases the repair cost. There was another. This is cool too because you could find objects out there that are damaged that it might be useless until you get them repaired, and repairing an object might be something that could be a quest. Another cool feature of it too is you could have creatures that have attacks that destroy, like this red orc has this sunder ability, 10 slashing damage, and the target's armor suffers 1 notch. So you can incorporate this into your master. So again, something I never thought I would be on board with, but it's a really cool system, and it really brings a lot of different potential adventure hooks into the scenario, into your campaign. If anybody has any questions or comments on this stuff, man, please feel free to jump in. I'm just kind of brainstorming what this book that I found yesterday that's pretty awesome that I read yesterday, and I love the concepts in it. Can't lie. Ammunition dice, another one. Very, very simple concept. If you've got a full quiver of arrows, and he's got to fix this apparently. If you have a full quiver of arrows, you have a D20's worth of arrows. Every time you attack, you roll your ammunition die. If you roll a 1 or a 2, your supply has started to go down. It now becomes a D12 that you roll with your attack. If you roll a 1 or a 2, it becomes a D10, then a D8, then a D6, and then a D4. And if you roll a 1 or 2 on your D4, you are out of ammo. That's it. You don't have to sit there and check boxes. You don't have to keep track of ammo in that aspect. You're just holding onto the die that you're rolling the die that is your current level of your current fullness of your ammo, and going with that. And there's no reason why you couldn't have like a second quiver of arrows. So if you got a full, go and find a go buy a full quiver of arrows or resupply. You're buying a D20's worth of arrows, right? That's it. You could buy a second one in case that first one runs out. Ammunition stacks. Yeah, it'd be cool. I mean, you could even find a D6 supply of. You find a D6 supply of arrows +1, right? So as soon as you have your +1 arrow die, if you're going to use your +1 arrow, then you roll on that, and you keep rolling on it. You keep gambling until it goes to D4, and then you keep gambling. If you don't want to use your +1 arrows, you don't roll that inventory die. You don't roll that or that ammo die. You go with what your other one is, but you could just keep rolling. If you keep rolling 6s, you have an endless supply of +1 arrows, right? Until you run out. Until you roll a 1 or 2 on that, and then you roll a 1 or 2. Ammunition. Love it. Love it. Very slick. Completely unobtrusive. It does not get in the way of anything. It simplifies it. So I don't know who came up with that, but freaking smart. Whew. Crafting. Part 4, crafting. Dude, we're not even a third of the way through this book. It's 180 pages. It's brilliant. This is a rabbit hole we don't have to get too deep into. The question is, do you want crafting, and do you want crafting in your game? I'm not against it. I think it makes for some amazing quest potential. Finding recipes, what the substance is. Like you might have to hunt down you might need dragon bone for this sword that you're crafting, that you find a recipe for. They need, like Aarakocra feathers, merfolk. There's some example monstrous materials. You could have anything. Troll flash. If you need a ring of regeneration, you want to make a ring of regeneration or a wristband of regeneration. Troll flash. Right? It's one of the elements that you have to find for this thing. Then it goes into crafting time, recipes, crafting time. Putting nodes out there. This is such a cool, this fits with a campaign like this, where we're doing this frontier exploration, strongholds campaign. The nodes, finding, you find this mine that produces, to use their example, there's dark iron that you can find there. Or a potential mine. You find the source of dark iron. You can, set up these nodes throughout the world. Your party might choose to put their stronghold near this mine to profit off this mine. But even the nodes can be something. The nodes can be here's node richness. So the node is run dry, a meager, like a creature. Like they use the example here for dark iron. You can get it off dark iron veins, or you could get it off a dark iron golem. So you could have these hunts where you're looking for a specific recipe or specific items for the recipe, and then you have the gathering skills. So yeah, I'm all for that. I think it fits into a frontier campaign, especially. I mean, one of the concepts of the frontier campaign I was talking about, which was fascinating, was the fur trade. You have this new world where textiles are kind of rare. So you have this bustling fur trade that's up and coming and becoming a prominent fixture in this new land. So it actually fits. I mean, the nodes thing fits right into this. So they're gonna, there's going to be people out there hunting specifically for fur. Very cool. Works. Gemstones, I'm not going to get into the details of it. It's basically just kind of getting into like the quality and of gemstones. Jewels, I mean, this kind of, where did this start? This started at Diablo, where you could socket jewels so that have I'm not completely against it, but it's never been something that's really fascinating to any extent to do anything. But I'm not opposed to it. I might include it. Have it. So I'm going to be crafting. Active crafting 67. So yeah, I don't know yet on that. There are jewel recipes, which whenever I see recipes, I think there's so much good potential for adventuring, especially if you're running a more sandbox campaign. I've got a lot of examples of jewels for armor and weapons, mythic jewels. It's just not a rabbit hole I'm ready to go down yet. Same with oils. These are things that you can apply to your weapon or armor to get certain effects. I'm not opposed to it. The question is how intricate does it need to be? I don't know. I'm not ready to go down that hole with that. Potions, no different. Flasks, no different. Alright. Ability checks. I really, really, really like this too. Oh gosh, I forgot about active defense. Active defense is really awesome too. Ability checks. This is this is kind of goes hand in hand. I think this is taken from the 2d20 system. The concept of open skills, which it probably always should have been this way. But now open skills means your skills are no longer tied to a single ability. Instead, you may apply your skill bonus to any ability check that feels appropriate. Obviously, there's DM discretion on this. I'm not going to, if I have a +3 charisma, I'm not going to tie every skill to my charisma. I'm not going to allow that people to abuse that and do that. But the fact that you can tie different, athletics could be strength, could be dex, could be con, could be intelligence. All the skills don't necessarily have to be tied to one ability score. And that's what's nice about the 2d20 system. As long as it makes sense and as long as it fits the narrative, you can take any ability, any skill, and align them however you see fit for the situation. That's your check. That's it in a nutshell. Ability checks. Yes, please. I've always, ever since I found 2d20, the 2d20 system, I've always wanted that for D&D, and there's no reason why you can't have it. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant little system. And there's examples in here that how it goes. It goes into it. They covered initiative again in here. Active defense. If you really want to go hardcore, and if you never fudge rolls as a DM, then there's no reason not to go active defense. Active defense means your character rolls all the attack rolls for their enemies, but they're just rolling it as a defense roll and a skill check. I'm sorry, not a skill check, a defense roll, which you take a d20 and add your armor class. That's it. And you going against a DC of 22 base plus the attacker's attack bonus. If you roll higher than that, you dodge the attack. You deflect the attack. This removes the rolls from the DM. The DM has to do it. It engages your players more because they're actually rolling defense instead. And they did the math, and it's the same exact math as rolling against AC. So it's all legit, right? It's just putting the dice rolling into the hands of the players, which that's kind of why they're there. They're there to do those dice rolling things. The caveat is you remove the DM's ability to fudge hit rolls. If for some reason, I guess it's a sore topic, but Yeah, you just threw a couple goblins and all of a sudden your characters can't hit and the goblins can't miss. You might fudge a roll or two because you don't want them wiped out by 4 goblins that were just there to guard the entrance. You want them in the dungeon. And if you've DM'd long enough, you know the craziest things happen and by the least threatening things sometimes. So that being said, active defense, characters roll. You're out on a limb if you do it. Static damage. Anything controlled by the GM NPC may choose to deal static damage instead of making a roll for random damage. Yeah, you know, static damage. I'm not a big fan of static damage. But I am a big fan of active defense. Did I already put that down? Active. All in. There's if your defense roll comes up as a natural 1, it's a critical fail. So yeah, a critical hit is a 1. If you roll a natural 20, it's a critical success. You defend with style. So it's score come up 19 or 20. So if critical ranges, obviously extend it as normal. This also gives a little bit more. The defense rolls, it gives you a little bit more liberty with your inspiration points, right? So you could use your inspiration points in more scenarios. So I think that's a good thing. And I guess that's what Portent kind of touches on. Saving attacks is the same thing. DC 22. D20 plus your spell save DC, and then DC 22 plus target saving throw. It's the same. There's some variance in here. That's it. Active initiative we already covered. If you guys haven't seen what that was about, active initiative is once you determine who the first person to initiate combat is, that person, once they're done with their turn, chooses who goes next. Could be ally, could be a monster. Eventually you run out of allies and you have to choose the monsters. But anybody that has taken damage can interrupt and when they say they interrupt at the end of that person, when I say I took damage, I'm going to use my interrupt. When whoever's turn it is, once it ends, then you're injected and you steal initiative. And the only caveat is you cannot pick someone that has gone in that round already. So you have to be careful who you're attacking sometimes. You hit the big bad evil guy first and you do damage. You can't pick your buddy. He can interrupt because he took damage. He can interrupt and take initiative and then focus on you. Because you already took your action, you can't interrupt them until the next turn, till the next round. You can't interrupt him, so he could attack you, choose his minions, they attack you, chooses other minions, they attack you. You could get ganked up on pretty hard if you're not careful, if your DM wants to do that to you. So that's basically the I already covered. I talked about it earlier. An active initiative is brilliant. I look forward to using it. Degrees of success, I already I already pretty much do this. So this just introduces boons and consequences. I guess that's something that I could explore. I'm not ready to write that down to something because I already degrees of success are. I mean, it's kind of we do that anyway. Active XP is the only thing I really didn't dig too much into. Active XP, you don't gain experience for simply killing monsters, so you gain XP by being active in one of 3 fields of adventure, discovery, recovery. I've come to terms with the milestone. I like milestone XP instead of regular XP, so I don't know if this really applies to, but they do something in here where I don't even want to delve into it. You can spend XP on different things. We're doing milestones. Dangerous magic's something I really need to cover right now. Yeah, I agree, Fanatic. It took me a while to get on board. You know what, man? It's just so much. It's so much simpler, and it makes more sense story-wise, and it's just too much. And then you have people with getting they want to do things just for the XP and crazy stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not into it. I'm gonna kill this dude because I'm gonna get 50 XP. No thanks. Although I don't think I've ever had anybody say that at my table. I think the kind of players I attract versus the kind of DM I am, it's just, we're not a match. If you're, not that I have anything against that kind of stuff, but it just doesn't fit at my table. Like min-maxers don't fit at my table. If you're rules lawyers, I mean, if those kind of people, not that there's anything wrong with it, we just don't really jive, you know what I mean? That's just, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with them, nothing wrong with me for having our differences of opinions in those matters. It's just not how I'm cut, man. So dangerous magic, I don't really have to dig into this right now. This is something that I want to take a little more time with because of how magic is. Thanks, man. I'm going to try to, I appreciate it, man. Thanks, Fanatic, for stopping in. I'm going to try to stream every morning during the week. So, I'm probably going longer because this is taking a little bit longer than I expected. But thanks, man. I appreciate it. Glad you had fun. I'm glad you listened to me ramble for whatever. I guess. This is new to me. I'm trying. So, I appreciate it, man. Peace out. Have a good one. Dangerous magic. Yes, this is. I'm not ready to delve into this yet because arcane magic is quote unquote off limits in the world right now. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Doesn't mean that people can't play wizards, because that could happen. It just means that I'm not ready to sit down and engage with this part of it yet. Journeys. I already knew about journeys before this. This is just a reiteration, a reworking, streamlining of the Adventures in Middle Earth journey system, and I am all for it. It is perfect for this type of campaign. I'm probably going to be doing a little bit of hex crawl and point crawl. And the journey system is perfect for a frontier exploration based campaign. There's no other way to put it. You have 4 different roles. When you go on a journey, you determine how long it is. You plan for it. You pick the destination, you choose your route, gather supplies, and then you go. You travel. You've got various different stages that the travel takes place in. But you have specific roles that your characters choose. You have the guide. So the guide makes sure that everyone is headed in the right direction. If the guide fails, you'll become lost. You can only have one guide. So the success, the party is on track. Subtract today's progress and the remaining travel time. It has DCs based on the distance, whatever leg of the journey you're on. If you're the guide, roll intelligence. So you roll intelligence on the guidance table at the end of the day to see if you're able to keep everyone on track. Cartography tools, maps, and the survival skill will help you be a better guide. So failure doesn't necessarily mean you're lost. It means you just add some time to the thing. You could make it, you could base complete adventures off getting lost and such. Then you have the forager. So that's the guide. The forager finds food and water for the traveling party. If the forager fails, you run out of essential supplies long before the journey reaches its destination. So make sure to pack plentiful supplies before you embark. So basically, if you've got a week's worth of rations for a week's long trip, you get lost, you're going to run out of food, but this guy can make it so you don't even have to use your rations, right? So you can have multiple people be foragers. There's DCs and various stuff that impact the journey concept. The scout ranges ahead during the day's travel and keeps an eye out for dangers. If the scout fails, you may be ambushed by enemies and other hazards. So somebody chooses the forager role, somebody chooses the scout role, and you have various things for that. And then the lookout. The lookout protects the camp at night. If the lookout fails, you risk being attacked while you sleep. If you are the lookout, you're responsible for making perception checks during the night to spot incoming threats, successes and failures. So you have four distinct roles for your characters for the journey mechanic. Definitely doing this. It fits. You can have it, set your traveling pace, walking, horseback. One cool thing about what I'm doing with my game world, because this is such a frontier land, unexplored land for all intents and purposes, very natural landscape. I am going to have horses be replaced with iguanodons. Iguanodons can walk on all fours, and they can also walk upright on twos. If they walk on all fours, they're faster. If they walk on twos, they can navigate better, but they're slower. They're a little bit bigger than a horse, but these are the things that are going to be trained to be the pack mule for this region. Something different, something new, something cool. Man, they don't have to ride horses. They're going to ride iguanodons. Anyway, it makes for a little bit extra cool flavor for this game world. They're still horses, but the primary mounts are going to be the iguanodons. Encounters based on it. So journey, I already know journeys are going to be. I'll write it down anyway. Journeys, page 107. I think I already put that somewhere in this document, right? So all these things that we're doing too, just really Link, I mean, there's so much adventure hook in all these different mechanics. If they were just if they were just there just to be there, just to change things, then I don't necessarily know how much value, although ammunition dice could be arguably not quest worthy. But then again, you find a D8 supply of fire arrows. I mean, it still can be incorporated. But everything else really lends itself to not being cumbersome mechanics and or adding significant flavor to the game, especially a game that means to be gritty. Light and Shadow, I think this, I wonder if this is where it kind of all started, because Light and Shadow kind of uses the premise, if you've ever played Darkest Dungeon, there's just light levels that have effects on your mechanics in the game, on your pressure and stress and stuff like that. This is just a very simple light thing. We have a level 0 to 4, and then based on your light source, 2 dim lights equal a bright light, such like that. I haven't really decided whether I'm gonna go down the light and shadow thing. I kind of, again, it doesn't feel so obtrusive, and with the dark vision, I feel like it wants to be a little bit more important. It wants to take a little bit more of a prominent role. So let's call Light and Shadow a tentative yes. Tentative yes. I'm all for experimenting with it. Talks about room scales, if there's darkness, how much light do you need, yada yada. It's a pretty lightweight light system. So part 7. Oh, here comes some fun stuff too. Where's the stress is coming. Stress is coming. Stress is fun. Wounds and injuries. Again, I think this is a great system. If you would have ever asked me before, should I incorporate some kind of wound and injury system? I said, no, it doesn't need to be. This does bring some 4th edition concepts. One of the cool 4th edition concepts, Bloodied, was a great concept, and effectively, when you get to 0 hit points, you're going to suffer a permanent injury. So when you fall to 0 hit points, you've taken significant damage and gain an open, lingering wound somewhere on your body. So you have these lingering wounds. Healing spells, obviously, healing when bloodied. If you're using a bandage, you have to use a bandage to start healing yourself when you're bloodied. But healing spells supersede all that. Exhaustion can accumulate. It's just an exhaustion level 1 through 6. There's just certain ways to increase your exhaustion. I don't see, anytime you gain an open wound, you also gain a level of exhaustion. So if you get an open wound, you get a level of exhaustion. not a huge. It's one of those things that it's fine if you're you're a little bit exhausted on early levels, but the more of those things stack, that's when you just want to maintain keep your exhaustion down. Treating wounds, healing wounds, reopened wounds. If you want a quick way to make falling 0 hit points more significant, then use the simple wounds variant. When you fall to 0, gain a level of exhaustion. So that's a simple wounds thing. You get rid of the lingering wounds, and this, if you fall to 0, you gain a level of exhaustion until you're able to long rest. And long rest is changed in this too. We'll get to that. I think it's in this section. Permanent injuries. Some monsters are especially deadly, destructive, and vicious when they hit. They hit hard enough to break bones and sever limbs. Dragons, giants, ogres, if it's huge, its attacks are usually extremely violent. If you're reduced to 0 hit points by a violent attack, you suffer debilitating permanent injury. Roll to see which injury you suffer. Re-roll any nonsensical result. So I could see incorporating this. I like number 10. Lose half your teeth. I think this needs to be a little more. I think lose. So when 70% of your injuries are lose something, I think that's a little bit too much. I think this is a table that could be modified. Like a broken. I mean, it already incorporates the lingering wounds. I think it's a system to discover a little bit, to explore a little bit and discover. And again, this specifically covers a violent attack, so this could supersede this. So I could see still using, this. It just has to be explored a little bit. It covers prosthetics. You can even get magical prosthetics. Again, more questing potential. It's lightweight. It adds to a gritty game world. I'm not against it. I mean, this book is just like, yes, please, yes, please, yes, please. That's where I'm. Death and Resurrection. It's not really much. There's not really huge. Actually, there is a little bit difference here with death savings throws. If you fumble, if you roll a natural 1, you fail 2 death savings throws. And if you get a 20, you gain 1 hit point and the dying condition ends. I think it's different. One thing to note in here, death saving throws do not reset after a short rest. Instead, you recover 1 failed death saving throw after completing a long rest. So, if you've got 2 failed death saving throws, you're going to want to take 1 long rest before you at least to get it back down to 1. There's really not a lot of huge differences here. Cheating fate points. I mean, you basically do it to cheat death. If you're going through all these different hoops to make things more gritty, why just introduce something like this that's just going to, although gaining fate is difficult, but everybody starts with 1. Is there any real, or maybe you just start with 1 and that's all you'll ever get? I mean, I could see doing that. Diseases, not something I'm going to dig into right now. Suffice to say, strangers in a strange land, definitely could be some room for incorporating those in. Here's the one that's probably I have to do a lot of thinking about. Survival conditions. Survival conditions are basically you're going to be monitoring things like hunger, thirst, fatigue, and temperature. It might seem like a huge thing, but it's the way they do it. It's very lightweight. Doesn't get in the way. I'm not ready to. At the very least, I'm going to do fatigue. I think I'll only focus on hunger and thirst, and I'll probably do fatigue and temperature. I'll probably only do hunger and thirst if there's a specific scenario that requires it to be a focus. If they're going into some extreme environment where survival is survival conditions. So hunger, let's do this below. Hunger and thirst. Only in extreme environments where these categories would be exploited. Exhaustion and fatigue and temperature. Fatigue and temperature. Yes, please. Those things are enough, are lightweight enough to sit there and reside without causing like hunger and thirst. I gotta go hunt for food. I gotta go hunt for water. I'm not ready to go down that road. That being said, it probably would be pretty simple to go find food and water. Again, it's part of the journeys thing already, but you could also make a skill challenge out of this. But it's also just a matter of being, just when you're going and being prepared to go out, you're taking that into consideration. You're stocking up on enough rations in case you can't find it during the hunt. Stress and afflictions. Again, this is more in the, this is the Darkest Dungeons influence on this again. And I think it might have had something to do with Darkest Dungeon, might have had some influence on the name of this as well. And it probably came from Stress and Afflictions as well as, what was the other item? Oh, lightness and dark, lightness and shadow. Stress and affliction is a big yes, please, to me as well. There are going to be ways to gain stress. There are mechanics you can attach to monsters that induce stress. So it could be part of a damage attack on you that's beyond, that's not necessarily hit points. So those screechers, can't remember what they're called. I think that's screechers. The screechers, that stalactites or stalagmites that scream. They could do stress damage rather than physical damage. So we're gonna put this here for now. Let's put it. There's a lot of things that this could tie into. Stress could tie into the dread mechanic that we were discussing early on. But you have also snapping and breaking points. And the interesting thing about hitting your breaking points is you can come down with an affliction. If you reach, I think it's like, your snapping points are 20, 30, and 35 points of stress. When you hit 20 points of stress, you gain an affliction. The interesting thing about afflictions, and this is how I figured out that it was a Darkest Dungeon influence, some of your afflictions are positive. So anything from 73 and above, you can become powerful, focused, stalwart, acute, perceptive, and courageous. These are all positive things. And you are permanently, you have those afflictions until you take the time to remove them. Now the interesting thing about it is you can risk trying to stress yourself out to excuse me, to gain these afflictions, right? However, as soon as you have 3 afflictions, you are dead. For all intents and purposes. Mental breakdown. If your character gains more than 3 afflictions, they suffer a complete mental breakdown. Your character falls catatonic and must be committed into care or die. A character who has had a breakdown can no longer be played. So, do you want to risk? You can risk having. You can have an affliction and be at 0 stress, right? But you have to take time to remove your affliction. As a matter of fact, affliction removal, you have to spend gold to be treated during a long rest. You could actually have a critical failure and have a secondary affliction attached. And then even, critical success, you remove all cleared yourself afflictions. There's different ways to do all that. But then this also opens up different mechanics and different possible items that can be purchased, like green leaf tea. Nothing like soothing tea to calm you after a stressful day, right? Just hanging out at the tavern. There are a lot of things present in the world, in the gaming world, that would reduce your stress as well. Stressful attacks. Gibbering Horror. So Gibbering Horror has an attack, Mad Gibbering. Target gains +2, 1d4 points of stress. So you could incorporate these things into your so it incorporates light and shadow. It doesn't say anything about dread, but dread should have been covered in here. Indefinite madness. If you don't want characters in your game to die outright when they are at a breaking point, consider afflicting them with indefinite madness instead. After 24 hours. Yeah. Anyway, I like the stress system. I'm for it. We're going to be trying it. Oh, next, part 8, rest and downtime. Short rest. This makes short rest and long rest pretty much changes the face of it. Short rest is a period of downtime at least 1 hour long in which characters sit down to perform a few basic tasks such as eating, drinking, and treating wounds. During a short rest, you can spend hit dice, bind your injuries, and consume some essential supplies, but anything more intensive will require you to settle down and set up camp for a longer stay. This covers in making up camp, and it kind of covers the lookout duties that were appointed elsewhere. Kind of goes over the different things you can do. Basic stuff, nothing incredibly, it's nowhere near a long rest. But then you have making camp, which you have camp activities that you set up camp, people choose camp activities. You can cook food, you can brew drinks. These things can reduce your stress. They can do a lot of various different things. Play music, tell a story, repair an item. Like if you try to tell a story, success. Your story is well told and inspires an ally. Choose a party member other than yourself or the lookout. That character gains a point of inspiration. Same thing with music. You can spend time working on crafting an item. You can play a game. Winner, you feel inspired, gain a point of inspiration. Loser, you lost the game. So there's no downside. As long, everybody that plays the game, as long as they're not occupied with another activity, they can all choose to play a game. So you're doing all these different activities where it's basically just one check. It does have the variant stress here. Setting up magic spells, conditions. Yeah, so if you're using the eating, drinking, sleeping, it replenishes hunger, thirst, and fatigue. So this is all a good little mechanics that coincide with it. And also covers stress stuff too, so like cook food. If you're cooking food and brewing drinks, you actually heal a minor amount of stress from everyone you serve. Be the lookout. If you successfully secure the camp, you heal a minor amount of stress from everyone. If you fail, however, everyone instead gains a minor amount of stress. So if you're on the lookout, I got this, and then you get ambushed, it's going to add stress to everybody. Play a music, tell a story. Yeah, that's great that your story, maybe your story wasn't so good or wasn't appropriate for the situation. You can actually add to stress. So short rest, we'll look to incorporate that. And then we'll also, the long rest, we'll get into that too now. 147, what was that? 142, 147. These don't necessarily need to be, these aren't necessarily going to be permanent fixtures, but what they are things that I'm going to explore in a new campaign that seems to fit in this campaign world. So, the long rest. This is the new version of the long rest. To be in a long rest, to begin a long rest, you must be in a sanctuary of some kind, such as a village, town, or city. Sleeping in the wilds isn't safe, comfortable, or restful enough for full recovery. A long rest period is a period of extended downtime, at least 1 week long, in which your character performs downtime activities. So basically, you kind of do the normal. You sell loot, choose your lifestyle for that week, choose your primary activity. You can listen for rumors, perform secondary activities, settle up, pay your amount. Kind of goes into all the details about this. If you are using the stress rules, completing a long rest automatically resets your stress level to 0. You can also pay gold to make an affliction removal check. What else is going on here? I mean, it's just basically a longer rest period. You need a longer rest period if you want to do stuff like healing stress and doing legit things to recover. So it adds a little bit of time to the just the lifespan of the in-game world. So you have to take those things into consideration when you're building your adventures. If you have to monitor whether it makes sense to be able to, can they just take a week off? How does that impact the game? How does it impact the game world? So if you just have that mindset going in, you have to be very careful about what you choose to take on for quests and events that have a sense of urgency to them. You want to make sure that those sense of urgency items come right after a long rest, where they just took a week up, they're ready to go, they're ready and willing. A lot of this will coincide with the next item, which is leveling up. I already do a lot of this. I already have trainers and mentors. In the game, in my game world, you have to get training. And it coincides with milestones. So it should be leveling up, finding trainers and finding mentors. It only adds... First of all, it makes sense. Second of all, it means you have to train in between sessions. Now, not in between sessions, but in between when you can focus on training to increase your skills. So it makes sense. Training typically, the only problem I might have with it, training can take a very long time. So training from like level 0 to level 1, it says it takes a week. Training from level 1 to level 2, these are all, 2 to 3 is 1, then it starts 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And as they say, these training costs will naturally slow down the pace of your game world. It will take a character a minimum of 100 weeks and 41,000 gold pieces to train from level 1 to 20. So make sure your campaign can accommodate this pace so that your characters have enough downtime to train. All that being said, let's see where he gets 41,000. I mean, I don't see 41,000. Oh, because this is gold piece per week. So you're talking about 12,800 gold pieces to go from level 19 to 20 and 10 weeks. That's gold piece per week. Got it. I don't know how I feel about that. I like the faster training variant, which is instead of these being weeks, they're days. But this gold piece per week is gold piece per day, so the gold piece cost is still present. But what I really like out of this system is the potential for, and this is why I've always liked it, it's the potential for story hooks. Your mentor, your trainer might have stuff for you. It's natural that these mentors and adventurers higher up the quote-unquote level chain, food chain, might have some information, but also they might go missing. You might come back ready for your long rest and find that your mentor is gone. So then what? What do you do? Do you have to find a new mentor? What happened to him? There's a lot of potential for story arcs coming from mentors, especially if you consider it, especially if you do the total weeks thing. If you do it weeks instead of days for training, you're talking about significant bonds, relationships formed with your trainer or mentor. So the answer to that is leveling up. Yes. So I think we're almost through the book. I've incorporated probably about 95% of what's found in potentially incorporating it. The campaign world is going to, a lot of this stuff is going to be test and trial and error, just like all things should be. If I find that light and shadow sucks and I don't like it, then I remove it. But knowing the kind of games I run, and as long as it can be done in a unobtrusive way that adds flavor instead of just being complicated just for the sake of being complicated, then it's all good. There's weird things that when you play a game, like especially survival games, there are weird things in those games that I never thought I'd ever go, gosh, I like that part of the game loop. Like sometimes grinding. Sometimes you just want to come home, sit down, and just go mine stuff mindlessly. Just so it takes your mind off, so you can just kind of, I'm going to go spend an hour cutting down trees and mining stone in Valheim, right? Just to kind of escape. But I never thought those things would be, if you were to tell me that going and doing mundane work in a game would be as fun as or more fun than doing it in real life, I would have thought you were crazy. But sometimes it's what it's kind of what you need sometimes. So as long as they're not obtrusive and not some big, huge time sink to the players, to the game, as long as it's not obtrusive and it just kind of resides on the surface and easy to maintain. I'm all for it. I'm all for complicating things if they add flavor and grit to the game. In a Frontier campaign, I think that's all these things fit for that reason. So there's some random tables here. We don't have to get into everything. FAQs. It'll answer some of the questions. Why use week-long rests? Why use active initiative? Active initiative, man. Active initiative, active defense. And the use of dice. These are all... I'm a little bit leery of some of the stuff. One of my plans is to do some published work. I don't think he has the authority to do that. Feel free to reference parts of this handbook in your own free homebrew if you like, with appropriate credit. However, please don't replace it wholesale or include my work in any for sale variant. You can't copyright rules. Game rules cannot be copyrighted. So I'm more than happy to. The fact is, he kind of, a lot of this stuff, mad respect for doing this. Mad respect. This is an amazing book. But a lot of the stuff in here isn't his. No, he's not selling this yet. He even talks about potentially doing physical copies of the book, which means, yes, he will be profiting. And he does do Patreon, which... let's be real, right? But he can. I don't think he can make that claim. You can't use specific examples out of here, but there's not a rule in here that I could not. No one could not incorporate into their game. These are all rules, and rules are not copyrightable. However, if you include Krasik, if you include Viridian or Valiant or Chansey, if you start including that stuff, yes. These specific examples, yes. Game rules, no. So he might need to rein that part back in. Otherwise, I mean, mad respect to this compilation, which I've not seen anything like this in a long time. This good. He does have character sheets included in here. Sheets and trackers, journey trackers. Yeah, lots of different things, which you can see it's got like the fate points, inspiration points. Anything else in there that's specific to training? Well, then he starts getting into some of the other, like rations, water skin, inventory, ammunition, usage dice and ammunition dice. So you can mark what level you're at, 20-sided, 12-sided, 10-sided. Incorporates that all in nicely. Your exhaustion levels, you just mark it up. Then you have your survival conditions, your hunger, thirst, fatigue, temperature, stress level, your breaking points, and your afflictions. If you get afflicted, it's got them all listed there. Got your conditions on here. What else? Magical Burnout, if you use that. Equipment, which is, it's kind of, he kind of Tetrised it, which is kind of funny, but kind of cool in the same breath. You could actually print these little cards out and put what your inventory items are on it, and just like slot them on your character. Like for instance, this is a 21 square grid, which is about average, I think, for your character's inventory. But like you could have your armor, or these things, if they don't fit on here, you can't put them on your, you can't carry them. So you could actually make that bulk system, inventory system, into what you would normally do. And just kind of grid them out like that. You can just store it as bulk and just have a total bulk. I don't know if I saw that anywhere. A total bulk. Notches. All the notches are included on here, so you can just mark your notches on your weapons and equipment. So basically there's a lot of little options on these character sheets that incorporate the stuff found all throughout the book. These are really cool too. I like these. I don't know if these are spent elsewhere. This is an event tracker by day. By week. And by month. Other different events. Oh, these are their journey tables. So you can have your discoveries, your guide, who your guide is, who your forager is, who your scout is, who your lookout is, and track that as the events happen during the course of the journey. I think it might be day by day. Yeah, it's got, each day it happens. And these are trial templates. So if you didn't see that, the trials are basically skill challenges, and the skill challenges are rewritten and redone in a lot more easier to understand way. I love skill challenges anyway, so they're never not going to be in my role play. I'll use them in any system now. But here's some templates for it. And then some quick reference guides. Although lots of the tables and such. And that's it. 180 pages we just went through. Crash coursed and decided that we're incorporating most of it into our campaign. Any questions? Good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. Love it. One of the nicest chunky documents I've seen in a long, long time. Usage die. That's the degrading die. The Black Hack RPG. Mental stress. Red Hook Studios. Yep. Darkest Dungeon. Yep. So you did actually get that stress stuff from there. Inventory slots and bulk. Matt Rundle's anti-hammer space tracker. Never heard of that. Pathfinder 2E. Weapon notches. James Young's 10-foot polemic. Fate points. The least favorite thing in there for me is fate points, and that came from Warhammer Fantasy RPG. Success at a cost. I don't know what that even means. Journeys and Travel, The Angry GM, Adventures of Middle Earth, Skill Chance 4D, Dread, Mickey Minaj. Don't know who that is. Things I'll have to look up. I like that Dread concept. Dread concept is fascinating. Area has dread points, and you role play the atmosphere, the environment, instead of a character. Very cool. That is about it for this. We've been going for almost 4 hours, peeps. So, anybody have any questions or comments on any of this stuff? If you've made it this long, whoo, boy. I don't know what to tell you, except you're pretty freaking awesome, because I just rambled. Ramble on. New Frontier. Just a little summary. Who's left? Anybody left? There's some people here. I won't call anybody out because they like lurking. Just a little recap. I don't know if you guys are aware what this is. I'm doing some world building. And typically using 5e D&D with Strongholds and Followers, the Matt Colville book. And this is Journey Mechanics. It's a little bit outdated now since we are using Darker Dungeons, Griffyglyph, and then some of the stuff that we're going to be investigating down the road is how this is going to be a hex crawl and point crawl hybrid. It's a frontier, think frontier America, circa 17th century, like 1650-ish, Jamestown, no gunpowder, fantasy instead of gunpowder, where the a arcane cataclysmic event wiped out most of civilization about 10,000 years prior. Arcane magic is outlawed. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's just outlawed. Wizards are insanely rare to find. Sorcerers are predominantly outcasts. Warlocks are pretty rare too. And it's about discover. There's going to be a lot of exploration and wilderness adventure. We have an underlying VBEG that is got his body has always failed him. Think of I think we cover the theme behind it is power corrupts humanity versus evil is a secondary theme. We expect the abuse of power results in oppression and corruption of body and soul, and ultimately evil reigns over their thoughts and actions. Humanity must prevail. Good must prevail. Traditional trope, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Abuse of power results in oppression. Humanity has a proclivity towards corruption when not held to account. Historically, politicians, tyrants, dictators, rulers of all kinds have given into the evil side of power. What traditional films, books, plays, yada yada yada, has this theme present. I think one of the first ones I thought of was Spider-Man. With great power becomes great responsibility. Ultimately, this kind of coincided because the main protagonist has got a broken body. This all came out during exploration, but then discovering that it's very much like Breaking Bad. Walter White is downward spiral once he finds out he has cancer. He uses his knowledge and power to go down that, become a pretty evil person. Raceland from Dragonlance was incredibly frail, and this character probably parallels Raceland more than anything. It was not a conscious decision. It's kind of worked out that way. What Raceland's abuse he received while he was young made him bitter. Not just the abuse he received, but he always looked at himself as a broken. His body, his vessel was broken, and that motivated him. But the bitterness from that life poisoned his heart. Evil, really. I don't even know if he had a choice at that point. It was just evil. He was going to be evil. Another good one that I thought of after the fact, Mr. Glass from Unbreakable. Just wanted to get revenge on the world that the world didn't cause. I mean, nobody else caused him his pain. Just the very nature of who he was caused him that pain, and everything else added to it. And he just became a twisted individual. And this character, the protagonist or antagonist, is very much along those lines. If he can't find his reward, his immortality, he's going to make the world suffer. And even if he does find it, he still wants to make them suffer. But it becomes, if he finds immortality, he wants to rule. If he can't find immortality, he wants to destroy. That's pretty much it for now. I got all this stuff that eventually we'll get back to going through what all this stuff and incorporate it, start drawing adventures and stuff from it. There's one concept that I've always kind of been, we have life and death and undeath, which kind of bridges that gap. But what happens if there's an intersection of all three? And that's what Kirkda, his studies and experiments have uncovered this place in between life, death, and undeath. And that's where his experiments have led to, and that's what he's exploiting right now. And it's a very hideous place. I won't get into many of the spoilers of the concepts behind that at this point, outside of the scope. But suffice to say, there is another place. I'm just calling it the in-between right now. There is another state that's achieved. That is, I think that's about it. We went through that whole book. I mean, it doesn't really translate on here because it's just referencing that. But we rewrote the random tables for character generation as they pertain to this campaign. Races. I can't stand Warforged, but it makes sense that they might be there. Some of these have been removed and these numbers have been adjusted accordingly. Added Warforged. Humans predominantly, there's about a 41% chance. Furbolg's possible. Character class, very, very small chance to be a wizard or a warlock. Wizard's only 4% chance, wizard 2% chance. Plus the 1% chance where you can choose your own class. Otherwise, it's random. Race, class, and abilities will all be lots of stuff. That's about it, I think. I think we're going to call it there. Put a pin in it. It's about 4 hours. Thank you all for joining and paying attention to my ramblings of a mad DM. Please feel free to follow. I'm going to get back on tomorrow again. I think my latest I want to get on, I want to at least put 3 hours into this every day. Campaign and world building. So I think tomorrow we start expanding on this a bit. Maybe start writing, brainstorming the first adventure for our level 0 PCs. And that, if we can come up with a good concept behind that and start building it, and we go from there and have a blast. I think it's a very interesting genre that really isn't explored, which I'm surprised because it seems like a really good fit. So we'll see how it goes. And until then, everyone, thank you so much for joining, and I will see you later. Bye. Stop.